All right, welcome to another edition of the Cut Wrestling Pro Wrestling Podcast. Along with me, as always, Emerito, Rivera, and our special guest today, Shane Hurricane Helms. Shane, thanks for giving us some time on this beautiful Friday. And I got to tell you, man, it's good to have you here. And I was very surprised when watching AEW Full Gear a couple weeks ago to see the Hurricane appear at the Hardy compounds. So I guess we'll work backwards a little bit and start now and go backwards. What was that like working with your buddy Matt Hardy in AEW?
Well, I mean, I've worked with Matt for, we've known each other for a long time. So
yeah.
It was standard fare as far for working with him. We were just glad that we could pull this off, carrying this deletion storyline between three companies. I was the producer on the first deletion that they did in TNA. And so then we got to do a little bit of the cinematic stuff in WWE as well. And then to continue that story in AEW was something we thought would be pretty unique. So it was a lot of fun. And a lot of the people in production on the AEW staff I had known as well. I knew some of them even from my WCW days. So I'm one of those people I've kind of been around. So even though I show up, I'm not really the new kid because everybody kind of knows me anyway. So.
Yeah, you're a journeyman, to say the least. Dude, you went from being cooped up at home to doing AEW. You did Talk of Shopomania. You were the detective. So
that shit was fun. That was the fun one.
I wanted to touch on that one definitely. I hope that character's not dead. I hope I'm not spoiling anything for anybody. You guys should have already seen it, but I'd like to see that come back at some point.
Yeah, and that was those guys that, they just let me do whatever I wanted. They had a kind of a semblance and it's like, yeah, just make it funny. And that's literally what they had on the script, that Shane will make it funny. Like, okay. And but the best part, it was supposed to be a redemption story for Marty Jannetty. He was finally going to throw somebody through the barbershop window, and then he couldn't. Last second, he couldn't make the show, which is the most Marty Jannetty fucking thing ever. he Marty'd himself. It's so great.
I was wondering because I was like, how is it they got everybody else, but they didn't get Marty Jannetty?
No, he was supposed to be him, and then something happened. Some story come out that he got attacked, but with Marty, you never know.
Exactly.
Between Marty and Stephen King, I'm not sure who has the most incredible imagination. Neck and neck with those two.
Can you take us through the process of the Talk and Shop Mania, like pretty much how that shoot went? Like pretty much, it's at Gallows' house.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through about how that process worked?
I mean, he's got a house that's kind of out of the way though, so it's not like he has a lot of neighbors that are going to be bothered by this. Very similar was done at the Hardy compound. Very similar process. Like for me, like I said, I just showed up and they said, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "What do you want me to do?" I don't know. Not exactly. I know Gallows wanted the Hurricane. That was the first talks we had. He wanted the Hurricane on the show. And initially, at some point, I thought Eric Young was going to be there. So my first idea was, well, we got to get Super Eric and the Hurricane together. That's got to be the case. Or somehow, where he's Super Eric and I'm Gregory Helms bashing on him for being a superhero, how ridiculous it is. I had a lot of ideas for Eric. But then they almost had Dr. D. David Schultz too.
Really?
Which would have been fucking amazing. And when he said that, I was like, oh, bro. I said, well, you got to let Gregory Helms do something with David Schultz. And then he finds out I'm a reporter. And that would just write itself. You guys know where I'm going with that.
Yeah, very much.
And so Gallows really popped for that. But then I'm not sure exactly what happened. They couldn't get David. But then it was still in their mind to have me doing the reporter type thing. And somehow that evolved into the wrestling detective. And then I got there and it's like, yeah, you can find a body. And I'm like, what? I didn't know how insane they were going to be. I did see the first one, so I should have known. But so basically they just said, let me come up, they let me come up with all the skits, even like for the first one, with the body being right underneath us and those guys never knew. Like they just let me do all that kind of stuff. So it was a creative, collaboration. We would talk to him and like with the referee, if you remember the skit with the referee, I said, okay, well, let me come from behind this tree. And then when I'm sitting there talking to the ref off camera, I legit didn't know what the fuck he was saying. And so I said that to him. I said that to Rocky. I go, I don't know what the fuck he's saying. And it was either Rocky or Carl. They're like, well, I think that's the skit. I think that's it. That you just don't know what he's saying. So it was just a lot of guys that just, it was a creative collaboration. That's the best way to say it.
See, I think that's what I really enjoyed about watching Talking Shop Mania 1 and 2. And like I told Chris Van Vliet yesterday, I watched it twice already, and that's really bad. Like it just came out last week, and here I am watching it over and over because you see all these little things that you didn't see the first time.
Yeah, when the Powers of Pain came out at the end, I was fucking screaming. Because I knew some of the names that were going to be there, but some of them weren't there when I was there. When I was done, I left. And so I kind of forgot. And then I didn't see any of the stuff. I guess they shot the stuff with Chavo. I think that was shot out in LA or something.
LA, yeah.
It was. But Chavo's line when the person had a gun and Chavo's like, he's got a gun. And the referee goes, it's a death match. He goes, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like that shit killed me. It was a little bit too much man ass for my taste. But overall, I mean, it's its own thing. If you're expecting Savage and Steamboat or Flair and Steamboat, this might not necessarily be what up your wheelhouse, but
it's more like a train wreck. Like, you just can't look away.
It's kind of like a scary movie or something. You know what I'm saying? Not another teen movie. It's kind of a parody type thing, and but it's still got. I told them what they should do is have a really great match. Like somebody out there just having this really fantastic match and they're just shitting all over it because they think it's bad because they're so used to bad wrestling on that show. That's what they should do next. I don't know if they'll do it. I probably shouldn't even have said that. Now they can't do it. But.
Oh, no, you'd be surprised. They will do it now because you did say it. It's like the beers that they were talking about. It's like they talked about it first and then never came to fruition. But I wanted to touch on you were a wrestler. You're still a wrestler. And then you went into the whole agent. Was that really hard to transition into?
No, because I've always helped people anyway. I've always helped people. And like even in WWE, sometimes my first run there, I would help agent like dark matches because some of the dark matches there was no like hands-on agenting back then, like for some of the local talent and stuff like that.
Wow, okay.
I said I'd already did little things like that, and then in whatever the year was when I was an agent at TNA, I had tore my ACL, and that's how that came about because I wasn't physically active at the time, and they needed agents, and apparently my name kept coming up. And, because I was doing Omega at the time too, in North Carolina. And we really kind of changed the face of the indie scene in North Carolina with like, I would just want guys to watch what I do at my show. I'm not trying to run any of these little companies out of business. I just want you to be better. Watch what we do, be better. Here's how you do it. And it really improved the whole landscape of North Carolina, and the companies that learned from it really started booming. So I was, and I've always kind of had a good reputation in the business. I had my asshole moments for sure, like we all do. But overall, my reputation is pretty solid. So they brought me in as an agent. And initially I said, like, they offered me a job the first weekend. And I said, let me see if I'm actually going to like this first. So I said no at first, not no, but like, let's just pump the brakes. But then I came back for a couple more tapings, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy it. And, then it kind of fast forwarded. I got back fully active in the indie scene as wrestling. They brought me up to the PC. WWE called me, wanted me to come down to train at the PC as a coach. And I was like, okay, that wasn't what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be a producer, but I actually enjoyed coaching a lot more than I thought I would. Because when I was younger, I just didn't have the patience to train people. You got to have a lot of patience to do that shit, because the people that don't pick it up right away, I just get frustrated with, because for me, it wasn't difficult for me, and I think that's why Michael Jordan isn't a good owner, because basketball was so easy for him. He doesn't understand that it's not easy for everybody, and so when I was younger, trying to help train people here and there, I wasn't good, but I got a little bit more patience in my older age. And then the coaching thing led to the producer gig, and I really enjoyed that, and I was having a blast until the COVID hit and we all got furloughed.
Until the whole world went upside down, right?
Yeah.
Who would have saw that coming? It's like we were at the top of the world wrestling wise. You know, we
well, there were people that were warning the government for years and years. Those people,
yeah,
those people saw it coming.
Yeah. I definitely have to ask too, going back to the talking shop and also you being a producer, how important is it for the wrestlers to be creative and being able to put their ideas out there? May not be able to be used all the time, but be able to have that imagination and try to bring something inside of them to the forefront to make it on the camera.
I mean, I think that's very important, you know, but the flip side is that some wrestlers aren't creative and they think they are. And therein lies your problem. Like if you're, it's like, you know, you always hear this conversation about scripted promos. Like there's this, you know, really kind of like thought process that's scripted promos. See, is that not everybody's good at doing promos. You know, you guys have been to indie shows and you've seen some of these promos. You're like, Jesus Christ, that was terrible. You know, and even in WWE and a couple of live events, we would let the people go out there. All right, just go out there and cut a little promo and give them that free reign. And it was like, Jesus Christ, that was rotten. You know, so not everybody's good at that. And you got to experiment with these talents to figure out which ones are good, which ones can you give bullet points to, and they can go and make it their own and make it better, because there are people that can do that, but not everyone can. And you know, when those scripts are turned in, when those writers turn in those scripts to Vince McMahon, they can't have these big gaps of blank pages where a promo is supposed to be. And then because Vince is going to go, well, what is this? He's going to say whatever he wants. Vince is going to go, what the fuck are you talking about? What is the promo going to be about? You know, so they kind of have to script something. They've got to write something on the paper, you know. And then if the talent is good enough, they can make it their own. But generally, if the talent isn't good enough, or they're saying some random shit that doesn't have anything to do with anything, or might get the company in trouble, because some talents don't realize that, like especially with WWE, it's a publicly traded company. You can't go out there and just drop a bunch of F-bombs and say whatever you want, this, that, and the other. You know, you got to be careful about that. But I think the most successful talents generally are very creative and very hands-on with what they do. And the more over you get, the more creative freedom you get. You know, like any job, when you start in on those lower levels, you got to do what the fuck you say until you climb the ranks and the ladders. I mean, it's very similar to just about every other job out there in that aspect.
That makes sense. I've had jobs where no one trusted me, and after 5-6 years, they're like, "All right, you're the man. Like, get it done."
Yeah,
but
yeah. Even when I went back, like all the success I had before as a producer, like I would say some ideas, and they would just keep questioning me, and I wanted to go, y'all know I've done this shit before, right? Yeah. And I never fucking struck out. Even some of the dumb shit that y'all gave me, I still hit home runs with. How about y'all just let me do my fucking thing and leave me alone? But because I was still such a new producer there, you still like at the bottom of the totem pole, so to speak.
Yeah, you got to pay your dues, and that's with everything.
I had to pay more dues. That's fucking ridiculous.
You had to go through a situation when you were with WWE. I think it was maybe around 06, around 05, 06. You went from the Hurricane character back to be Gregory Helms. You went with something that was successful and popular, and you evolved your character and your skill. How difficult is it for, not what was it for you, but also for current talent to make that change of getting out of that comfort zone with something and trying something new, something similar to like what Roman was doing, where Roman was pushed as the top babyface, but now is the top heel. You had to go through a transition of being a babyface into a heel. What was that like, and what advice do you give to the younger talent who try to change their character around like that?
It wasn't hard for me, because I had been a heel in the indies, and I was always, when I was a heel, I wanted to actually be a legit heel, not a tweener. 3 count was kind of a tweener heel to a degree. But like the stuff I did on the indies, I wanted people to hate me. I wanted them to, not buy my merch. If you see a heel and people are buying this merch, that's not a heel. That's a tweener. Tweener used to be a bad thing, and it really shouldn't be anymore. It's just different. So I knew I could do it. It wasn't a matter of whether I could do it or not. I just had to get the company to understand what exactly it was I was doing. And that was difficult at times. But as far as my in-ring work, like as the Hurricane, I kind of had to wrestle down. If you watch me as Sugar Shane, I'm one of the best light heavyweights in the world. I come to WWE, I got a cape and a mask on. I can't wrestle like Sugar Shane anymore because the audience, they weren't accepting it. because I would try these things on live events. I would try to go out there and wrestle just like Sugar Shane, and they didn't give a fuck. They wanted to pose, they wanted to thumb, they wanted me to try to choke slam. I'm dressed like a superhero, so I needed more character and personality, and not just a flip flop fly. It didn't work for that character. Mm-hmm. And the thing about the Hurricane is too, I was having so much fun doing it. Like I knew the limitations. They were never going to make the Hurricane the world champion. They weren't. Maybe now because of the success of the superhero movies in Hollywood, maybe it would have had a better chance today. But back then, there was still a lot of people, and it was still a kind of a bigger guy's business back then too. So there's a couple things that were working against me. So I knew the limitations of the character, but also I was having so much fun, whereas I saw the top guys being fucking miserable all the time. So I'm trying to figure out, I'm having fun and I'm happy. They're miserable as shit. So what do I do here? But I felt like I had a good run, and I really kind of plateaued at a point where, okay, they're not going to do anything else after this Rosie run. With the tag team championships, we won those, and that's my favorite championship run. And then they took them off of us for another experiment of Cade and Murdoch, which might have been the least over team we ever fucking worked up there. And it was just like, really? Another gimmick like this? And so, and in this time too, Flair was always kind of a mentor for me. And Flair was just like, you're too good for this gimmick. And like, he said that to me like a couple years before the turn, but it was something that had stuck with me because me and Flair had a pretty good run there for a little while. We worked on TV a couple times on live events, and just that stuck with me. You're too good for this gimmick. And I'm like, man. And so, that's what the Gregory Helms thing was. It was just a reminder of them of what I could do. Mm-hmm. And it worked so much that after one of my matches, Arn Anderson came up to me and he goes, damn kid, I forgot how good you were. And I remember going, thank you, sir. And then he walked away and I was like, what does that mean? Did they not realize that the Hurricane was just a character, that I was wrestling like that for a reason?
I think after seeing it for so long, you start to forget.
Yeah,
you do. It happened to Jerry Lawler. Like I see it now more so in retrospect. I mean, Jerry was as over could be. And then he got so good at the comedy, which is what I did too. Mm-hmm. I got so good at the comedy that they forgot that I could wrestle. And then when they would try comedy with other people and it would be a dud, they're like, man, well, this Hurricane is really funny. Let's just keep putting him in these comedy situations. And then not letting me be that performer. So I was a victim of my own success, which is a weird thing, comedic success, because not everybody can be funny. We see it all the time, people trying to be funny and it's just fucking not. And that's the worst. The worst thing is when you're trying to be funny and it bombs. Exactly.
But we had the same conversation with Santino Marella, Anthony Carella. Anthony said the same thing. He says, I did such a good job of getting that comedy spot over. He couldn't do anything else, and now he wanted to go back and try broadcasting, but he would have to do it as Santino, because if he tries to go back as Anthony, no one's going to take it seriously. And that's an issue.
Yeah, and he was super fucking funny too. Like, so yeah, him, R-Truth now, like R-Truth is so good at that. It's going to be hard to get him. Not saying it can't be done. Anything can be done in this industry, but comedy is such a weird thing. Even in Hollywood, very rarely do they get the Oscars. Mm-hmm. They'll give it to someone watched or heard of, and then you watch the movie and it's just like, well, I don't even give a fuck about this movie. How did they get the Oscar?
Exactly. I think that happens so often. Yeah. We undervalue the comedy. I think
that's because it's disarming. Like when somebody's funny, if somebody in the corner is all mean mugging, you feel like they're a threat. That's just a psychological thing. If somebody is real funny, it's disarming, and that's the person you want to go talk to.
Yeah.
And the person that's over there making a mean scowl might be the biggest wuss in the world. The person that's telling the joke might be a legit killer, but he's the one you're going to go to.
Yeah.
Because it's disarming. It's a weird psychological thing.
Yeah, it's very weird. But I wanted to touch base. What are you up to now? Do you have any more?
I'm still 6 foot. Right now, I'm about 210. I love how I was talking about comedy and then I just give a dad.
No, I was interested. Do you have any projects that are coming up? I mean, what's going on with Shane Helms from here on out? We saw you in Talk of Shopomania. We saw you in AEW in the Elite Deletion.
Yeah, I mean, with kind of having to play it by ear with this fucking virus thing. hoping it's going to be over soon, but not really sure. I got about 10 more pounds I need to lose before I'm spandex ready again. I can kind of squeeze into the hurricane outfit and make it look good for a second, but if I get winded and I start taking them deep breaths, that spandex is going to start screaming at me. But I got some things in the works, but how I make my surprises really work is I don't tell people. I can't explain that to people in the business enough. Like whether it was the Rumble or whether AEW, like how do you keep it a secret? Like I don't fucking tell people. it's not rocket science. But totally as far as personal stuff, I took a writing class in this time off. I got another one coming up, so I got some writing projects that I'm doing. Not really wrestling related. One of them might be just because I don't. Not that I don't want it to be, but it's kind of leaning there somehow. Other than that, I take martial arts twice a week too. So I'm trying to stay busy, trying to stay active. I think people with a creative mind can't really sit idle for too long before we go nuts. I got to be doing something. I got to be creating something or doing something. And that's why I post so much lately. Every day I'm posting something fucking ridiculous. And and even before this, like when I was doing conventions and stuff, people would talk to me more about social media than they would even my wrestling anymore. They just love the shit that I put out there on Twitter and Instagram. So
yeah, you're very active on social media. I saw, I think it was either yesterday, it was a mask post, wasn't it?
What was it?
It was something about wearing a mask. It was something funny. I can't recall exactly what you said, but it had me cracking up because it was like, you likened it to one thing and you said, well, wear a mask.
Oh, yeah. It was like Carl from The Walking Dead because he wouldn't stay in the fucking house.
Yes.
Like he would come out of the house and endanger everybody. You're like, get in the fucking house. Like that's the same way I feel about people when they won't wear their mask for 20 minutes in fucking Food Line.
Exactly. It kills me. It's like I run a video game store in New Jersey and I make everybody wear a mask. And this guy comes in, he's got a mask with a hole right here. I'm like, what are you wearing? It's like, for that, don't wear a mask. Like, get out. Like, what are you doing? It makes no sense to me. And hopefully people will get it through their heads and we can get back to a semblance of normal, because I'm tired of being afraid that they're going to lock us up again because that's right around the corner.
Yeah, and the thing is, they think we want to wear a mask. No, we don't. None of us want to wear that shit. We want to get over this, but we're trying to do it to make it get away. And the thing is, most of the people complaining about wearing a mask are ugly as fuck, and the mask would help them. Like it's a win-win for everybody. You ugly as fuck. Put on the mask. We can get out of this deal.
And you're helping society, so we don't have to look at you. That's a beautiful thing.
Exactly. It's twofold.
And going forward too, like because I try to help with the grocery shopping. I got 2 boys, so I try to help around the house. And going forward, I'm not sure we shouldn't always wear a mask in the grocery store because these people walking around touching food, they're picking up the vegetables. It seems like that hand sanitizer, everybody should be forced to do that before you go in because everybody's touching every fucking thing in there. And I never really thought about it as much before. I would always like kind of wash my fruits and stuff when I got home, but now you're washing the damn peeling off of them, scalding the grapes till they fucking melt. And
I literally just had this mental picture of like you or somebody else sitting there telling people, you're ugly, you have to wear a mask. You're ugly, you have to wear a mask. It's almost like the person, they should have the security guard at Victoria's Secret. You shouldn't be shopping here. You should be shopping here. You shouldn't be shopping.
Yeah, if you're good looking, you can get those clear ones, the face shield. All right, you get a face shield. You and certain people, you got to pull out like one of those Michael Myers saying, "Now put this all over the whole fucking head."
Exactly. Yeah.
You need some Iron Man armor. You can't even come in. No, sir. You go out.
And it's funny we're talking about COVID and the way before how it affected wrestling. How do you think both the WWE, AEW, Impact, MLW, and all the organizations New Japan has handled producing their product through the COVID era at this point?
I mean, I'm sure they all hate it. Everybody wants audiences. They all hate it, but they're all trying different things. And, you can talk all day long whether they should have shut down or not. They didn't. So no point in even talking about that. But they have tried different things. They're trying their best. I think all companies have been trying their best. Impact still doesn't have any people in their audience, which sucks because they're putting out such a good show right now. And like always, they're having a hard time getting the noise out about the show just because it's Impact. But they're putting out a really good show right now. But I think, different companies based on the amount of money they got behind them are trying their best, so.
Yeah, because that's something we've never seen, something like the Thunderdome. They did it
No,
somewhat.
that was insane. Yeah.
Yeah, they did it in the NBA. That's where I first saw it. And then when WWE did it, that was something else, man. I've never seen an undertaking like that.
There was a movie, The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger that they
Yes.
did it in back in the day. So it's kind of like that. So it's most of the stuff in science fiction movies comes true at some point.
Yeah,
I read an article one time about all this stuff in Star Trek has almost come true. Like everything that they have, of course not, we're not flying in space, but like a lot of the technologies in Star Trek actually exist now.
Yeah.
In terms of scanner. The only thing they didn't really predict was the internet because that was just such a weird thing.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I didn't have this, Well, when we were kids, now that I think about it.
The only thing
my boys got it made. They they do the virtual learning. So they do the online thing. They got their games all day long. They got the little Oculus thing. I grew up, I had Pong. I'm old enough to have Pong, which was fucking ridiculous. And my son has that Star Wars game and you put the virtual reality on and Darth Vader's right there beside you.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And so I asked myself, okay, when schools open up, do y'all want to go back to school? Not that quick. They didn't even think, miss your friends? Nah.
Well, they have their friends online now.
Yeah, exactly. So they still get that interaction like this, so
I'm telling you,
like, all right, well, just go outside every now and then to look at the sun just so that you can see it.
The only thing I was disappointed about was they gypped us on Back to the Future with having flying cars, and they missed, Back to the Future having flying cars and everything.
Yeah,
else
we got fucked on the hoverboards.
We got that and the shoes.
We got fucked on the jetpacks.
And the shoes to press the button.
The shoes are fine, but I want a fucking jetpack for sure.
Okay. You talked about your kids. What do you like to do non-wrestling? What do you like to do on your spare time? Do your kids play sports? How about what's life like for Shane Helms outside the ring?
One of my kids takes the martial arts class as well, but the other one's 8, so he's still into just playing games, chilling at home. He's old enough to take it, but he'll come up to me too, like, Dad, he goes, I know you're a wrestler and I like it, but I don't want to get hurt. I'm like, good boy. I should have thought about that a lot earlier myself. But other than that, man, I'm a big reader. I just kind of read most of the time if I don't have anything active to do. Still live on a farm. The family farm's 120 acres, so there's always something to do around here anyway. And we bought this like sporty ass golf cart that we drive all over the place like maniacs. It's got like big ass wheels, so it looks like a monster truck golf cart. So I ended up in a pond. That's probably what happened. I wrecked that fucking thing. But I'm a little bit more blessed, I know, than a lot of people are in terms of, even though we're staying home a lot, I got a lot of space. My kids have a lot of space. We can go out and, play around the farm and everything without going to. For me, I know I'm in a good situation. So I try to stay positive.
That's good. And hopefully we'll get out of this soon. I think we will. They're talking about vaccine by April at least.
Yeah, I'll take 3 of them motherfuckers. I don't
Exactly right.
Yeah. I do see a hurricane action figure. Behind you. Can you talk about what it was like for you to see your action figures and also yourself in video games? What was it like to see yourself both in action figures and video games like that, and that part of media?
That was really cool. The first video game was actually, one of the WCW one that sucked. Backstage Assault. Okay. It was a terrible ass game, but 3 count was in it somehow. So that was the first one. That was pretty cool. And then, when I got to WWE and the merch started doing really well with the Hurricane. So when the video games came along and everything, that was pretty awesome. I know at one time when my Jax Pacific figure came out as the Hurricane, somebody from Jax called me and it was their best-selling action figure of all time, because it kind of crossed over with superheroes as well. Like kids that didn't even know wrestling would see the superhero guy and buy it. So
okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So I mean, but I think Cena or somebody ended up beating it a couple years later, but which is totally fucking cool. The fact that I was even in that conversation for me was awesome. And this one, this is when I went back to WWE. I just had started back as a producer, wasn't even still an employee. I never really even got to employee status there.
Really?
Yeah. So, but I'm doing the producing thing. They got me going out to San Diego Comic-Con, and because I'm a producer 24/7 segment with R-Truth. And then I ended up being in the segment as Hurricane. He told me to take the outfit, and I was like, okay. But on the plane flight there, I know we flew through Phoenix and then Phoenix to San Diego. When I'm on the plane about to take off, I'm getting all these tweets about the Mattel booth at the San Diego Comic-Con has put up images of the Hurricane action figure. I didn't even know they were doing it. And so, like fans are so good about making things, images, Photoshop and all of that. I didn't know if it was legit. So now this whole ride, and it wasn't a long ride, but it was like an hour and a half. I'm like, man, did they make an action figure for me? Why wouldn't they tell me? And so I get to San Diego and I find out it's legit. And we got to go to the con to kind of check out the scene where we're going to film at. And I go to the booth and it's like, oh, you should have told us you were coming. I'm like, y'all should have told me y'all were making one, because I didn't fucking know. But it's cool, man. The kids, my kids are kind of used to me, so they don't really. Kids, your own kids don't give a shit. Other kids think it's amazing. My kids will look at it and go, hey, that's daddy, and then fucking go play Pac-Man or something.
Exactly. with the whole Star Wars thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Shane, we really appreciate you giving us some time today. This was an absolute pleasure. Can you let everybody know where they can find you on social media?
At Shane Helms Com is where I'm at. I'm the most interactive and probably overactive pro wrestler on there. I was one of the first on all of that shit. So you can always find me on there being an idiot. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everything except Parler. You'll never see me on that horse shit. But at Shane Helms Com is where you see me. And
you before we let you go, you also have a podcast, right?
Oh yeah. I was one of the first to do that too. Yeah. Dude, I was live streaming. So you guys got it made. I was live streaming back in 2010. Wow. And internet traffic back then was dog shit. So fucking bad. Like I had like Stephen Bonner on one time, and it kept crashing. I had Capadonna from the Wu-Tang Clan on, and it just kept going to hell. It's one of the reasons that first earliest rendition of Highway to Helms, which is the name of the podcast that I did, I stopped doing because I was like, man, I can't keep doing this. This shit's just annoying. Which you guys know, you got to schedule the interviews and do all this shit. And then you get them on there, and like internet speeds back then were just so bad. And I'd have them on there and they would just be frozen the entire time. And it was just so fucking annoying. But so I sympathize with you guys. I know what you're going through. Podcast is nowhere near as easy as people think it is.
Yeah. Well, one of the issues that I run into is I live in the Bronx, right? So I have church bells going off. I have motorcycles going by. I have car alarms. I have the ambulance going by. So I'm constantly having to mute. So sometimes I seem like I don't have questions or I'm not talking.
Yeah.
I'm just hiding the noise of the city.
There's gunshots out there, stabbings in the hallway.
Yeah. And for me, I have my stepkids who come down and be like, they're trying to whisper, who are you talking to? And I'm just making hand gestures. I'm like, no, stay away. So that's my it's not as good as his story, but I'll do what I can. And that's it.
And that's one of the reasons, like this version of Highway to Helms, that since I brought it back, I'm on episode 70 this week, which I've recorded the first half on Tuesday, and I still haven't finished the second half. I'm fucking lazy. I'm like lazy / busy. I'm busy, and then when I have the free time, I get lazy. But I haven't had any guests for 70 episodes.
70 episodes, no guests?
No guests. It's just me. And I just talked to this advertising agency, and that's what they loved about it. It's like, how do you just talk by yourself? Like, it's so difficult. I'm like, I don't fucking know. So, but that's what they like about it. I got that idea from Bill Burr because I listen to his podcast and he didn't have any. Every now and then he does, but for a lot of the time he doesn't. And I was like, man, that is a lot easier. You don't have no work. But the Comic Slam, which is a portion of my podcast, not to drag this on, but I do a portion of the podcast that's dedicated to comic books. I think I'm gonna start bringing in some guests to talk about that too, because there's a lot of people in the industry that actually do like comics. None of them existed when I was the Hurricane for some reason. Now all these fair weather fans have come out. But a lot of people in the comic industry too that I have befriended over the years. So I think I'm gonna have some guests in that aspect.
Well,
awesome.
That's very cool. We'll make sure we plug everybody to go check it out. Yep. Right on cue. It's lunchtime's over. Back to virtual school. So, ladies and gentlemen, Shane Helms giving us some time today. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Just hang on 1 second. Check him out, Shane Helms.